how to create an AI bot just like this using Amazon Q. And we're going to achieve this by using a PDF version with data for our AI bot to answer frequently asked questions and give answers to patients as a use case. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create an Amazon Q bot to answer frequently asked questions and how to officially connect it to a data source in order to train the AI model. So the first thing we want to do is go to your AWS console and we want to search for S3. And for S3, we're going to create a bucket to hold a PDF file that's going to contain all of our frequently asked questions and answers. There are other data sources that you can use, but we'll get into that later. So once you're on Amazon S3, you can go ahead and select Create a Bucket. And we can say for general purpose, and you just want to give it a bucket name. So for this one, typically when you're giving your buckets a name, you do want to hint and imply what you're going to be using it for instead of giving it a generic name. So in this case, for the PDF I made, it's going to answer common questions for patients before they go to a doctor's office, for refilling prescriptions, and what to do before the visit, things like that. So I can call this bucket FAQ Patient Portal. Because more than likely for this bot, if it were for a real client I was building this for, it would be user-facing. They can ask these questions. And we just want to scroll down, and you can keep the object ownership disabled, so that way only people in your account can view this bucket. It's not publicly accessible. And we can say block for all, and we can do everything else as the default. And we can say create bucket, and creating the bucket, it'll take you to the home page to show all the buckets that you have. So I just want to click on the one that I just made, and now it wants me to upload an object. So this is where you would actually store the data for the Amazon Q bot. So I'm going to go ahead and select upload, and I'm going to add a file, and I have my PDF ready to go here on my desktop, so I can go ahead and say open. And now it will be officially uploaded. You can also do folders if you have a big batch of PDFs that you want to enter for data, but I just have this test document which has the common questions listed out, like I said, for prescriptions, for the questions that they might ask, and for things like for vaccines and shots. So now that I've done that, we can go ahead and scroll down and say upload once you're done entering all your documents and data. And it should be successfully created. To keep note of before we officially create our Amazon Q bot is that it's going to ask us for the S3 bucket name. So you just want to make sure you make note of the name that you officially gave your bucket. We've officially uploaded our data. We can now go to Amazon Q, and we want to go to Amazon Q Business. So it's important to keep in mind that there is 3 different features of Amazon Q. So there is just the regular Amazon Q Assistant app. There is Amazon Q for Business for enterprise accounts, and there's also one for Amazon Q Developer. So for Amazon Q Developer, that is questions meant for your company's internal systems, meaning you can ask it questions like for billing and other things like that, but it's not meant to be user-facing. So we just want to make sure we select Q for Business. And we can say get started. And as we can see, once we get to the home page, it wants us to first create an application. So the great thing about Amazon Q is it does create a user interface for you. You don't have to build it. All you have to do is connect it to a data source, so our S3 bucket. There is those other options like Confluence and things like that. Done entering all the data to your satisfaction, you can also customize it later on before you officially publish it for real users to interact with. So we want to create our application, so we can go ahead and select create. And for user access, it's going to want us to first choose if we want people to have to authenticate or anonymous access. So that's without authentication, meaning anyone can just go ahead and use the bot. It is up to you for which one you do want to select, but something to keep in mind if you are building this bot for an actual company, you always want to say authenticated access. especially if your data sources have your company information that is considered private that you don't want the public to know. So that could be, for example, how their security architecture is set up, or product features that should only be internal, things like that. And we want to give this a name, so I'm going to name it Goal FAQ. And for the outcome, it does show you a little preview of what it's going to show for the interface, but you can customize it later on. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. And you do want to select AWS IAM Identity Setter. So that's going to, again, control the access. You can switch it to identity provider as well, but for this, I'm just keeping it to the default. I'm going to select Create Account Instance as well for the IAM Identity Center. Since I don't have one currently, it's going to create one for me by default. This will control the access and the permissions. So if you're building this just as a test or an experiment, it's important to keep in mind that you're going to have to delete the IAM later. So just keep a note the name so that way you can go ahead and delete it later. On Q, it is subscription based, so that's something just to keep in mind. So currently I don't have any users, so you just want to select add new users and groups, and you can select existing if you already had one. So I'm just going to say add new users and a group, and here you can fill out your information for the user. So again, if you're doing this for a test, you can just put your information. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill that out with my own information. Click on the hyperlink for the pricing page. It does break down exactly how much it is per month. So as you can see, it does break down the advantages or disadvantages between the subscriptions. So if you were to do Amazon Q Lite, it is $3 per month, and then Pro $20 per month. But for this test, after I build it, I'm going to tear it down, so you shouldn't incur a charge if you do that as well. But as you can see, for Amazon Q Lite, you can connect to the Amazon Q app for the knowledge and data and receive permission-aware responses. So what that basically means is, let's say you were doing this for a company that did have several employees logging in, but only some of them were authorized to access certain documents and others aren't. This would be a good subscription to choose. It's officially been created, and it does give you the official menu for your web app. So if we were to scroll down, it shows one user. It should just be you, and the groups as well. So for groups, again, let's say it was for a company, or you knew you're going to have several different people accessing it. You could create one group for admins only, another group for support, and other things like that. And if we scroll down here, it also gives us the option to customize our web experience. You can also change things like the text the users are going to see when they interact with your bot. So I already switched mine to change it to a more appropriate title. So I said medical FAQ, the welcome message as well. So keep in mind, this is what they're going to see and what helps them understand what your bot is meant for and to help kick off the conversation. So I just kind of let them know that this is going to be for questions for prescriptions and shots. And you can also change the theme as well to different colors. You can also add logos and things like that if you added it to an S3 bucket. It is up to you for how far you want to customize it. But since I'm just doing this for testing, I don't really need to go that far into it. But if we go back to the panel, I'm just going to click on data sources, because it is what it sounds like. It's where we're going to be feeding our data in order for the machine learning to happen. So if we scroll down, as you can see, it does want us to create an index. So this is what's going to help it index your data and help pull that out whenever it gets asked a question. So we want to say add index. And you can change the name as well, but I'm just going to leave it generic. And for the indexing, it does provide that link again to see the cost. But since this is just a test, I'm going to switch it to starter and keep the number of units for 1, since I only have 1 document. But depending on what you have, you may want to increase this to a higher amount. And I'm going to say add index. And it can take up to 20 minutes for it to officially complete. So you just kind of want to leave it alone and let it finish. If you try creating your data source before the index is created, it can cause problems. So you just want to give it a couple of minutes. And you can tell it's done being created once it's officially showing that green banner. So now we can go ahead and add that data source. So if we scroll down, we can just select Add Data Source. And now it's going to ask us to officially select where we want to pull our data from. So like I mentioned earlier, it does offer quite a few different options. The most common ones that you may want to take a look at for your projects is Confluence. For example, I built one in the past where I connected it to a company's Jira Confluence source. So that way internal IT teams could ask it questions for frequently asked troubleshooting methods. And you can do custom data sources for Gmail and Salesforce Online as well. They do have, like I said, quite a few different options for their full catalog, and they do also have on-prem as well. But we're just going to select S3. It does want us to name it, so I'm just going to name it My Medical Source. And you can put a description as well. And it does want you to select your IAM role to access this. So it is recommended that you have it create a new service role. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that. Choose a default role name for me. And now if we scroll down for the sync scope, this is where it's going to want us to define officially that S3 bucket. So if we select Browse, it's going to show all the S3 buckets that you have. This is the only one that I have that I made for this project, so I can find it right away. But if not, you can just search for it. And I'm going to select Choose. And I'll leave the default to 50 for the file size, the rest as default, and keep scrolling down. Select a sync mode for our data source. So what that just means is how often do you want it to recheck the data to see if any changes have been made. So I'll just say full sync, and now it wants us to choose a schedule. So let's say you did it for Confluence, for example, where your team was constantly uploading articles. You might want to do it for daily, but in this case, since I'm just doing this as a test, I'll just say run on demand until I select sync now. And if we scroll down, we can say add data source now. And this may also take a few seconds as well, so we just want to give it a moment there. And once it's done, it should take you to your official data source page. And it should show that green banner that you've done it successfully. So we want to say sync now. So what that's going to do is officially check our S3 bucket and in essence just scan all its data to officially integrate it. But depending on how big your data source is, it can take a few hours. But since I just did one document, it shouldn't take that long. So I'll just give it a couple of minutes to start syncing the data, to start crawling it to see everything that's on there and indexing it for responses. Once it's done officially syncing your data source, it should again show that green banner. And if we go ahead and scroll down, it should also show completed. Let's say for some reason it failed or anything like that, it would show up in red and you could view the report to see error logs for why it failed. But they also do have a couple other different options for Amazon Q as well, so you can integrate it with relevant tuning, QuickSight, and other Amazon Q apps to integrate it. But I'm just going to do this for the data source feature. So we can go ahead and start testing this now to see if it accurately reflects the data. So if we go and click our medical bot again, it should show the URL for our website. There's a couple other different places you can find it, but if you click on it, it should take you to your Amazon Q bot. And it looks like it's going to ask me for the username that I created, so I'm just going to fill that out. So once you've officially logged in, it should take you to the bot that everyone should be seeing that has permissions. Or if you did set up to where anyone could have access, as soon as you clicked on that link, it should just immediately take you here. So now you can start asking it questions based off the data that you entered. So for example, I'll just ask it, can I get a shot if I am sick? And see what it says. And it looks like it's thinking. And it gave a response based off what I had in the PDF. So since I just used mine as a use case for medical, I just entered some general advice, but it went ahead and thought about the answer for a moment and it gave back what I had in my FAQ for questions and answers, but you can go ahead and keep asking it. So an important thing to know about Amazon Q is you do have the feature to give it a thumbs up for a good response or a thumbs down. So since it did give me the correct answer based off what I had from my data source, I'll give it a thumbs up. So that way it can start training the model to know if it's getting the questions right or wrong. And if it is getting it wrong, it could start retraining accordingly. I had and asked it one more question so I could give it another thumbs up. But let's say I ask it another question that I know it will not have the answer for, so I'll just ask it something that's completely off topic for medical. Something like, how would I buy stocks? Just something kind of random for this test because I want it to report that it does not have that information. So as you can see, if it doesn't have it, it does say no answer is found, and you can give it a thumbs down so that way it knows that that's not the response that you are looking for. But one of the good features about Amazon Q that I like is if you go here to sources, it will show where it got that information from. So it will give the link to that PDF that I made. And especially if you connect it to Jira or Confluence for internal questions for your team, it is a great feature so that way the response gives it a summary, but you can also click on the articles for step-by-step. Or if your app is going to be user-facing, if they do have more questions, and as long as your PDF, you keep it to information that only they should have access to, they'll have the ability to go ahead and click on the link and be able to answer more questions for themselves. But there you have it. That's how you build a custom Amazon Q application. It is pretty quick and simple, and it helps grow your ability to understand how AI works for machine learning.